Okay, so in the previous lecture, we talked a little bit about Redux in this diagram. So Redux is a central data store, and it is a JavaScript object, which will also represent the global states of our application. And this reducer right here, it's a function that interacts with the Redux store in order to change the data inside of it. So you can think of the Redux store as a storehouse storing the data of our application. And then you could think of this reducer as like a guard at the door of the storehouse. And only the guard can go inside the storehouse and then edit the state of the Redux store. So when actions are dispatched from anywhere in the application, this guard receives them and then uses those actions to update the state inside the storehouse or Redux store. Okay, so the Redux state is always being updated from one single place, right? And that place is this reducer. Okay, so actions are sent to the reducer, and then the reducer makes those changes to the store depending upon which action has been passed to the reducer. Now, the reducer function and the store are tightly integrated with each other. So, in other words, when we create a store, we have to pass along to that store a single reducer function as a parameter. And thereby, the store will know which reducer is going to handle those changes. So, let's have a look, and we'll start by creating a simple store. Now we're going to use CodePen to quickly illustrate the basics of Redux, and then we'll implement it properly a little bit later on into the React Router project that we created a couple of lectures ago. So, okay, let's go to the CodePen. So if you want to follow along and work with me inside your own CodePen, that's cool. All you need to do is make sure that you've got your CodePen open. You should also hook up a Redux library to your CodePen. You can do that by clicking on this Settings button and then click the JavaScript link here. Okay, so first you should select Babel as a preprocessor right here. And then type right here, Redux, and select the Redux library. And then click this Save and Close button to save the changes. So now we've hooked up our Redux library to our CodePen project because we're going to need that over here in a minute. That way we can gain access to the Redux library in here by just typing Redux. Okay, so now what I want to do is get something from the Redux library. So first we're going to need to create a store. So I want to get something from the Redux library that's going to be able to enable us to create that store. Okay, so to create a store, first of all, I'm going to create a constant. And then I'm going to use deconstruction in here. And I'm going to grab create store. And then this is going to be from the Redux library. Okay, so we're grabbing create store from the Redux library. And now we have the Redux store. And we want to just go ahead and actually create a store. And it's very simple. We just say const store is equal to create store, which we just grab at the top right here. And then we call that function because this is a function built in Redux. Okay, so now remember back when I showed you that diagram and we said that the store is tightly integrated or coupled with a reducer, and then we can pass the reducer into the store as a parameter. So we need to pass a reducer through here, and we'll just simply call it reducer. Now, of course, you can always give it a different name, but it's going to be a reducer function, so I'd like to be clear. All right, so now the store knows which reducer is going to be interacting with it. And then up here, I will create that reducer. So again, the reducer is just a function that interacts with a store. And I will say function, then we've called it reducer, just like so. And this function is going to take two parameters right here. And this is where we do the interacting with the actual store to change the state. And in here, we'll take two parameters, and we'll take the state, and we take the action. So let's just type state and action like so. Okay, so this state is the state of the store. So now when the reducer first interacts with the store, it's not going to actually exist. What? Don't worry, we just have to create an initial state for the store to begin with, and then when it first starts, it'll pass that initial state into the store via this reducer. Okay, so now let's create this initial state. So right here, I'm going to say const initial state and set it equal to an object. So inside of here, I will say to-dos, and it's going to be an empty array to begin with. Then I'm going to say posts, and this is going to be an empty array as well. So we just use these empty arrays to begin with, and then we'll fill them in just a little bit. Now to pass a default state into the state parameter right here, I'm going to say the state is equal to the initial state. Okay, so now for the first time, this reducer functions fire, and then it's going to say, well, hang on, we actually don't have a state that you're passing here. So I'm going to use the initial state as a default value for the state. You follow? So when this reducer functions first get fired, it is going to use this initial state as a default value. All right, glad we cleared that up. So now we have our reducer function, and we've passed that into the create store method. And this create store method creates the store, and this is the reducer that's going to interact with it. Fantastic. So now, it might not make much sense, but as we go through the next few lessons, it's all going to fall into place. Don't even think about it, okay? So I'm going to take a pause right here. You can go back and review something if you need to. But in the next video, we are going to start to look at all these actions that we've been talking about. All right, I'll see you there.